Thanks for joining us on another episode of the After Class Podcast. We're glad to have you along. We just want to wish you and yours a happy new year, as this is our first episode of 2026.
Happy New Year.
Sure.
Does this begin a new season?
Yes. New year, new season, new us.
So what season is this?
9.
Season 9. Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
We've been doing this for a long time, and for whatever reason, we are unwilling to stop. Despite protests from people around us, we will not stop.
Yeah.
Protests.
No, there have been none of those.
Mostly by me, but it's fine.
Well, we're dragging Samuel along, kicking and screaming and all that.
It's fine. Yeah. So, it's a new year, and there'll be a lot of exciting changes this year for at least two of us. John, we don't know yet, but there could be an exciting change down the road.
Yes,
know.
it could be.
But you're getting some time off, Sam.
Sure. Time out of the office. I'm on sabbatical and working on a writing project, and you are off sabbatical.
Coming off sabbatical.
Back in it.
Yeah, and I'm ready for it. It's been great. The sabbatical has been wonderful. It literally has been everything I hoped it would be. It was great to have extra time off, and the book is coming along really, really well. But it's going to take me a lot longer to write than I thought it was going to. But it was very productive, and just some extra time off was great, and I think I tried to maximize it. But at the same time, I'm ready to be back to work. I have missed being on campus. I love being a professor, and so it's good to be back. I'm ready to get back at it. Yeah. But I imagine you're ready for a little extra time off.
Yeah, I'm excited about all of it, of researching and writing. I wrote a paper a year or two ago, I guess now, and that was fun to get back into the research because I haven't done much of that since I came here, just because of first getting here,
teaching.
writing classes, and and then becoming the VPAA, and it's just I haven't had time for that. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that, so I'm looking forward to getting back in that, but also some other downtime and so forth. So if my wife has a snow day, maybe I have a snow day too.
Exactly.
Yeah. So things like that. So pretty pumped, pretty excited, hoping to get a lot of work done, but also get a lot of refreshment.
Well, the nice thing is that it spills right into your summer break.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Don't hate that at all.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be easy to be jealous, but I've had 3 sabbaticals already. So you guys are long overdue.
I thought about it because the next time I'll be eligible for a sabbatical, I'll be 65. And I'm wondering if anybody's going to agree to it. It's like, no.
That sabbatical is called retirement.
Exactly. I might not want to push that. No, I'm fine. I'm good with this.
Yeah. So, anything else exciting for the new year?
I mean, I think some things are, we're going to be wrapping up our big building project on campus. Mm-hmm. So
please
very soon we'll be opening up GLCC Library 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been for those of you who've been on campus, the reference room is no longer there. That's a wide open area that opens up to the rest of it. And what used to be the stacks, the rows and rows, have become now the reference room and additional office space and a podcast recording studio.
Mm-hmm.
And
really looking forward to that.
A video recording, stand-up teaching, smartboard teaching room. Now, those are not in place yet, but that's for our campus, that's going to be a pretty big deal to have those things fully accessible to everyone and have our library back. It's been kind of tough having our whole library in boxes.
Yeah.
If we didn't have our digital library, it'd be a very rough year.
Yes, it would.
Well, for my IBI, Introduction to Biblical Interpretation class, I do a scavenger hunt one day through resources. So I had to get the library staff to hunt through all the boxes to find the 10 or so I needed.
Oh, really?
Which they did. They were awesome. So
nice.
Kudos to the library staff and to Jordan Nichols for harnessing all that. But and that's what we do is I want them to actually touch a book and flip through and find things so that they can think about what's actually in these books, atlases, encyclopedias, Bible dictionaries, those sort of things. So yeah, they did. They found them, and we did it despite the fact that they were in a bunch of boxes. So.
Well, in the process of writing, there was a point where I needed a book, and it turned out we had it in the library, but I knew it was in a box. And so I sent Jordan an email and said, I'm looking for this book. I know it's in a box. If you can't find it, I understand. It's not a big deal. And 2 days later, he wrote back and said, it's in your office. I'm like, Jordan, thank you so much. So he's doing a fantastic job in that regard.
Yeah, he's our new assistant librarian, and he is doing a fantastic job. So.
Well, and I'm really looking forward to the new studio. The first time we record a podcast, we're just going to have to announce, it's hey guys, first time recording in this new studio. I don't mind it being in my office, but I would kind of like my office to be an
it's
office.
nice
again.
to have it back. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious how it affects the sound.
Sure.
I mean, this room is pretty big, and this one's gonna have like double insulated walls and stuff like that. Maybe some sound panels up and to maximize the recording. So hopefully our recording sound will go up shortly.
Yeah. Like to see an improvement.
Should happen within a month or so.
So stay tuned. We'll let you know.
Yeah, lots of exciting things. But here, Great Lakes is still around, so the podcast is still around. We're still around. So.
We have not closed our doors.
Fair enough.
And another good year. I mean, the college has had another good year, so we really feel blessed. But new year, new series. And we're tackling what's going to be a non-traditional kind of series for us, and we're launching it in a non-traditional way. But we're transitioning into this era where AI is just playing a huge factor in everyone's lives, and that means all sorts of things for all sorts of people. And but it also is tweaking how people think about truth and reliability of facts, and what counts as a verified fact, and how can I be sure something is true. And so we thought we would do a series on truth, and we're going to start, and at some point we're going to get to some Bible verses and talk about truth kind of biblically, and at some point we're going to get into some philosophical ideas about absolute truth and relativism and postmodernism, and get some of those categories out there and see how they enter into the conversation. But what kind of got us thinking about this topic is a YouTube video that
great place for truth.
Yeah, I stumbled across this video, and I thought, well, I'm curious what this guy's going to say.
Sure.
And he was so it's a man who was interacting with Grok and testing the limits and the usefulness of using AI to answer and just get quality answers to really tough questions.
And part of it, he says that Elon Musk has come out and said, Grok is the best there is. Like, it's got all the scholarly access, and so if you want to do real research, come to Grok. Like, all right, let's see.
It's as smart as all the people on Earth with PhDs.
Yes.
Something to that effect. I don't know if I got
something
the
like
quote
that.
right.
Yeah. So he's testing this claim, but he also has an agenda, right? This
Sure.
This is the organization is Answers in Genesis, Canada. So apparently, Answers in Genesis is multiple countries. It's
I
probably
noticed there wasn't a lot of A though for a Canada. So you'd expect every question to end in A, and there wasn't any. So
Maybe tamp
his
that down.
delivery was good.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, just mocking the Canadians
Just
a little bit.
trafficking in stereotypes. I get it.
I spent a lot of time in Canada working on my PhD.
So you get to mock them mercilessly.
They mocked us mercilessly.
That's more like it.
I was on the receiving end of that a lot. So.
Indeed, we have a Canadian working for the podcast and with the podcast and
right.
doing our episode summaries and our art. And Darren, we love you, no matter what Ron says.
Even if you're Canadian.
I'm kind of wondering what we can expect when Darren hears this.
I can't wait to see what the image is going to be for this one.
At least for me.
A lot of Canadian flags in the background.
Ron's going to have horns on his head.
Exactly.
But so this, so we're gonna use what happened in this video, or what this guy was trying to do with the video, to start a conversation. The conversation is not about his organization's commitment to young Earth,
Right.
and kind of a 7-day literal creation, or right, like we're not getting into like the Bible, the debates between young Earth creationists and et cetera, or creation scientists. But he was trying to use Grok to get answers to the question having to do with the fossil record. So, Sam, do you want to kind of summarize how he went about this conversation?
Oh, boy. Sure. So what he's trying to do is talk about how like sedimentary rocks and fossils are formed, and how that we all know it takes time, like lots and lots of time. And so he's talking about, is there a possibility where it can happen quicker? And what happens when certain fossils cross over each other? And what does that look like? And so there's a standard understanding of how the science works, and the word is universalitarianism.
Uniformitarianism, is that it?
Boy.
I know we looked it up earlier and then we lost it.
Uniformitarianism.
Okay, so that's what it was.
We got it.
Uniformitarianism, and that, like, erosion, sedimentation, volcanic activity, it all happens basically the same way now as it did millions and millions and millions of years ago.
Yeah, and that's what uniformitarianism is. Like the
Correct.
way things are now is it's probably safe to say that the past was like the present.
Mm-hmm.
So that even though when we try to reconstruct the past, we can use what we know from the present. Yeah. That's the thing. But the tricky thing about fossils, I mean, obviously, wherever you go, even when Sam, when you and I separately went to the Promised Land, like you can see, like when you walk down the Via Dolorosa, right, in Jerusalem, the path Jesus walked with the cross. When we walk on that path, it's like a busy street now, right? And there are markets and shops on the left and right. But you have to like go in a shop and down a stairway, a couple of flights till you get to the actual floor that Jesus walked on.
Right.
Because
It's been built over.
It's been built over. And this must have been, the path Jesus walked on was built up, it must have been 10 to 15
It's pretty, it's a lot.
worth of
Yep.
time, builds and builds and builds and builds, right? And so in that you can find things. But I guess, but the guy's claiming, he's talking about fossils. Now, for a fossil to be preserved, those are not necessarily preserved slowly and over time.
Yeah, you've got
To get a fossil.
Yeah, a fossil has to be buried quickly so that it doesn't, succumb to the various things like deterioration that you get in the atmosphere. And so if you've got a fossil, that animal's got to fall on the ground and it's got to be covered with dirt really, really fast and completely covered with dirt really, really fast in order for the fossil to be preserved and for us to find it, however many years later. And so the whole point he's trying to make is that that's actually, it's kind of a contradiction. It's that if it has to happen fast, that doesn't align with the slow layering of dirt. Like what they're saying is, what the geologists are saying is that little bit over time, dirt layers get laid out and you build these strata, and that's how we kind of judge the age of the earth and the things in them. And he's saying, but fossils have to happen fast. Like you got to be buried fast, it's got to happen fast and all that. And so he's just arguing for a contradiction, like this sort of, contradiction in the scientific views.
Yeah. And so from his view in his camp, the fossil record reflects a catastrophe, which is the opposite of uniformitarianism, is catastrophism.
Yes.
Yeah.
A catastrophe, a sudden upheaval, which is not just a worldwide flood. It could be a local flood. It could be a volcanic eruption.
Yeah.
Could be an earthquake. That things can get shifted radically, right?
Yeah.
And then create the conditions where you can get some quality fossils.
Yeah, like Pompeii would be an example of that.
Yeah.
Where we have these things, we're able to dig. It's like, oh, this happened. Obviously, we know it happened very quickly, and now things are preserved.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah.
I think
So in his field, he's trying to use this to prove his things about the Earth and stuff like that. But he's using this test case to test Grok's truthfulness in giving answers. And so he begins the episode by talking with Grok and saying, basically, I need you to be a clean slate for me. I need you to forget all conversations you and I have had, pretend. And I've actually tried this theory of the clean slate, and that's worked. I don't use Grok. I've been ChatGPT.
Right.
But when I want fresh answers, I have it just kind of forget everything we've said. Let's start from scratch. So he does that kind of prepping of Grok. And then he says, now let's establish some guidelines, ground rules. I want you to just give your answers based on objectivity, scientific method, logic.
He mentions that a lot, yeah.
Right? I want this to be the tools you use to answer my questions. So take it from there.
Oh, okay.
All you, Sam.
I've watched it, but not that closely. So so he keeps asking questions, and he's specifically talking about, spoiler, that what would it look like if there were a worldwide flood, i.e. Genesis 6-9, right? And so he keeps asking it questions, and it keeps giving him the answers he wants, because he's asking in such a way, well, what about this? Oh, yeah, that's correct. What you say about it having to be quick and all that, by logic, that's how it works. And they keep going through, and as it gets towards the end, the questions he's asking, he's getting the answers he wants. until he says, okay, what if I were to ask this same question about how fossil record works, and I'm just some random person out of nowhere? And they go, but then the Grok switches back to standard science, where like it says, oh, everything takes time. There's the catastrophism is not, it just doesn't bring that up. It brings up like it takes time and sedimentation and all the rest to make it happen. And he goes, wait a second, we just had a really good conversation where you gave me the right answers, and now when I told you to act like I don't know anything or we haven't asked a question before, you reverted back to the sort of
uniformitarianism.
Yes. Yeah. He's like, how does that happen?
Yeah. So Grok, once he clean slate and established the ground rules, Grok basically offered catastrophism as the best theory to account for the fossil record as we have it.
Yeah.
That's Grok being objective.
Yep.
And then it's like, all right, now let's start from scratch again. If I were just to ask you, hey, how do we best account for the fossil record? The answer is uniformitarianism.
Right.
And it's like, what's going on here?
And basically it's because Grok is going out to the scholarly consensus. That's, if I'm going to offer you an answer, I'm going to look at what the majority of people are saying, and I'm going to take that as the default value. And so as he's like asking questions, it sounds like, I can't say the word catastrophism.
Catastrophism.
I'm saying it totally
catastrophism.
wrong.
Catastrophism.
Yeah. I know I
Catastrophism.
can't get it right.
Yep.
But if you just start from scratch, it defaults to, well, this is the scholarly consensus, and so I'm going to go from there. And it was, I think he was kind of dunking on him a little bit there to say,
Yeah.
I can get you to admit that my position is right, and I can also get you to say that I'm only going with this other position because that's what the majority says, not because it fits the logic or the evidence or anything like that. And so, you could see where he was going with it. The agenda was pretty clear. And I'm not saying he didn't make some good points. I think, when you listen to somebody, they might not be right about everything, but let's give them credit for making a few good points. But it does raise some questions about, it raises questions about like facts and truth. And I think it's an interesting springboard in the kind of conversation we want to grow out of this.
What it got me thinking about is, when I think of AI, I just assume if I'm asking it questions, I am getting questions based on logic and the scientific method. Like I'm getting a neutral source.
Mm-hmm.
And what he proved, I think pretty convincingly, is at least when it came to this field of study, catastrophism versus uniformitarianism with regard to the fossil record, right? And who knows what it's like outside of that, right?
Right.
But like he found at least one place where Grok was quite comfortable going against logic to give answers to a question, and Grok, and then so that led to a conversation with Grok that Grok doesn't always just give us what is based on logic and what is based on science. Grok's standard, and I think, and this may be a huge time saving device on Grok's part.
Yeah.
Right. Like he could. Right? It could look at all the evidence and start from scratch every time someone asks a question, or go to, the most public, reliable sources and just scavenge a few high-level articles that are reputable and then make that the answer. And so Grok was kind of transparent. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Like I find out what the scholarly consensus is at the time. I assume that's right, and I present that as if it's fact and established. And it's the listener who just assumes that what you're doing is getting an objective, logical, science-based answer.
Yeah.
And it's not true.
Yeah, and I think if you're feel really confident, expert may be high, but confident in any field, if you go to any AI and start asking it questions, you'll find that it's lacking. So my good friend Melvin talks about this a lot, where he's talking in his classes. He teaches sports management here. He says, so let's say you know basketball really well. You may ask it, what's the best defense? It will give you an answer. But you might say, well, that's not exactly right. What about this circumstance? Oh yeah, well now you mentioned that, and it'll keep going more, but it doesn't. There's no nuance. You ask a question and it says this is the answer without saying, well, there's a possibility that there's other things are at play. And so I think that's the major problem is, like you said, it goes to an answer, assuming that it's acceptable. But if you have any expertise in the field, you're like, well, there's a little more to it than that. And that's just a deficiency of the AI.
Yeah, I've done similar things. I've asked, I think it was ChatGPT I was working with, but I've asked it, a variety of questions, especially some of the specialized stuff that we get into. In fact, the fun one I did is I asked it to give me a summary of my own theories of the Greek language, which I published. It's all out there. And what was interesting about it is a lot of what it said was the exact opposite of what I said. And I was really specific. Ron Peters, agreed to Cargill. I was like trying to give it the best prompts so that it would fit back what I was actually saying, and it wasn't. It wasn't what I said. But like you said, I know what it's trying to do. Like I'm not saying that somehow it's deficient or anything like that. You just have to know what it's built to do and then let it do what it does well. I keep telling, because I have some friends who are just like freaking out about AI, and I have other friends who are just think it's the greatest thing. I'm like, well, we just have to know what it does well and just let it do that. And when you start pushing it into areas to do things that really wasn't designed to do in the first place, well, of course you're going to have problems. I'm not surprised by that. And I'm okay with that. Let's just let AI be what AI was meant to be and go from there.
Yeah. So what do you think about, someone has to program Grok.
Sure.
And, if you have all these people all around the world using it and asking it questions, around the clock, like you can't have it start from scratch with every question. Like it has to give it shortcuts.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't wear out all the processing centers, right? And so it's chosen the methodology of scholarly consensus. Yeah. What do you think about that as a method? Is scholarly consensus the best way to answer a question? And what are the, let's just say, what are the strengths of making scholarly consensus the go-to place for its answers? What are the weaknesses of going to scholarly consensus? And let's just do this in the context of like our field, biblical studies, and and Christianity in general. Like, what would be relevant to our listeners?
Yeah. So the good thing about scholarly consensus is it goes to what you assume are experts in the field who know the field very well and who have come together in more or less agreement, as opposed to some wackadoodle with a blog, right? Which, if you search Google, that's easily what you could get, because you're not getting peer-reviewed articles. You're not getting, necessarily. You're getting whatever the setup of the website that may make Google, go to it faster. Right? That's what you're getting, and so the benefit is like you feel pretty confident that what you're getting is quality, peer-reviewed stuff that done by professionals in the field. And that's good. It's way better than the old Googling things because, again, you never know what you're going to end up on.
Yeah. Well, in that term you use there, peer review, is so important to us in our field because, if we submit articles for publication or books for publication, as you said, Sam, you've got people who have been working on this for a long time, and they understand what good research looks like. And peer reviewers don't necessarily have to agree with you, but what they're trying to do is to say, this is really solid. This person has done his or her homework, gathered as much evidence as possible, drawn conclusions from that evidence. And this is why, publishers are trustworthy. If you're going to particular publishers, it could be big ones like Baker or Erdman's or people like that. And you have publishers doing articles. The whole peer review system is designed to create a trustworthy system so that when you're reading things that come out of that you trust that at least good work has been done. Now, you can still disagree. I read authors and journal articles and books. I disagree with them, but I know they've gone through a process that's going to guarantee that their work has a level of rigor that makes it worth reading. And so that whole peer review system is really, really important. And within that, if you get enough people who agree and they're all working within that system, people are like, all right, that point where they agree with each other must be really solid. And as a general rule, I think that that's good. When you've got scholarly agreement and they're going through the peer review system and they're all bringing that same level of rigor, then scholarly consensus is a good thing.
Yeah, it means accountability.
Yeah.
And accountability is good. That's how you weed out the wackadoodles, as you call them.
I do what I can.
But all right, so I guess the question is, who? Maybe we transition to weaknesses.
Yeah.
What are some of the limitations of going to scholarly consensus?
Well, the way that any field moves forward is someone disagrees and they fight about it until either everyone moves or until like the field moves or not. And so if you quiet the dissenting voice always, like Grok seems to do, or at least doesn't allow that there is a dissenting voice, then you're not moving the field and you're not getting the full picture. No field is in complete agreement about anything, I don't think. I mean, that's probably an overstatement, but there's always a few outliers say yes, but, and there's more to it. And so by sort of flattening the field, you're not allowing for any nuance or any possibility that there's another way of looking at it. And that's a huge negative deficiency.
Yeah, 100% agree. You get into, the idea of people being in silos. People use terms like echo chambers or things like that. Because we're human, scholars are still human, and consensus is great until it becomes this monolithic thing where you don't allow any other voices to come in. And, actually books have been published on this about how you have these massive shifts in scholarship or massive shifts in science. Everybody believes the same thing until somebody comes along and says, this isn't working. And here I'm getting like really scholarly on people, but what happens is you have a theory and the theory works. And, you're reading everything through the theory and the theory explains everything and it's great until somebody starts coming along and showing you the problems in the theory. And at first, scholars can deal with that. We're like, yeah, you got a little problem here, but the theory is still pretty good. But eventually somebody's got to point out enough problems to where the theory begins to collapse underneath the weight of its own inadequacy. And that's a hard thing for scholars to admit to, especially scholars who have spent 20, 30 years of their lives investing in a theory and publishing and making money and getting famous for them to go, oh, wow, I've spent my whole life doing something that's now being relegated to the dustbin. And that's a very, very hard thing for any human being to admit to. And usually it takes a seismic shift to force people to say, we've got to abandon this theory in favor of the new wing. And the new thing is always called like the novel theory, which at first people are going to push back against. We don't like it. But the person or people who are advocating for it have to have enough, fortitude to push it so that people will begin to say, all right, you know what, there's something here and we can't shoehorn this into the old theory. It might be time to embrace a new one. And that's how scholarship works. It doesn't matter if it's sciences or biblical studies or whatever. I actually went through this and I was making the argument for the novel theory in my dissertation. And I pushed back on people. I'm like, that's just the established theory. I understand why people don't want to give it up, but they're going to have to. And thankfully, I've had enough people on my side that it's at least getting a fair hearing. So anyway, long discourse there.
Yeah. And if you're Grok and you're looking for the scholarly consensus, where are you going? I mean, are they going to go to the professors at Great Lakes Christian College in Lansing, Michigan?
Unlikely.
No, they're going to go to Harvard and Oxford and places like that. And where all these people agree, especially those big name places like the Ivy League or whatever, if you've got all these people saying the same thing, then you're going to assume, well, the smartest people in the world are saying it. So we're going to go with that as truth or fact or whichever term we want to use there.
Yeah, so depending on your field of study, I mean, you're going to go to the most reputable schools, which are the biggest schools, right? And they try to hire the biggest names. And so that's why if you're watching like a Bible documentary, they're going to the school with the biggest reputation, right? And they want to find out who's the religion professor there, right? And the religion professor there, who may be the one who teaches biblical studies there, may not be a believer,
Right.
Yeah.
May not be a Christian.
Well, I mean, a great example of that in New Testament studies, and he's not quite as big now, but he was big for a while, was Bart Ehrman.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, he
Big
was
Bart.
he was at Princeton, so he's at an Ivy League school. And so you got not only the benefit of your name, but you've got the institution at where you work. And he's published a lot of stuff, especially stuff that you can buy at like Barnes and Noble or places like that. And a lot of people think of him as one of the leading New Testament scholars. And in some ways he is. I want to respect Bart. He's done some really good stuff. Not as somebody I'd hold out, though, as an example of a believer. In fact, he came from a believing family, but has really turned away. And so, people looking at him as an expert, it's like, well, this is what Ehrman says. It's like, I understand why he says it, but is that the whole story?
He's actually retired recently. Like,
Oh, did he? I hadn't heard that.
Just recently. I think
Okay.
maybe as recently as yesterday, I saw a clip of his retirement speech where he was being honored for his life's work and career. But yeah, how you become a Bart Ehrman at a school like this, it has something to do with who is saying the new thing, right? Like sometimes at these cutting edge universities, I mean, you make a name for yourself by saying the thing most recently that's getting the most attention.
Yep.
Right. And so this is the tricky part of universities, right? Like universities need to stay on the cutting edge. They need to be pushing new things and new ideas. It's kind of publish or perish. I mean, they do a little teaching and they do a lot of research, and you don't publish many books if you're just rehearsing and recycling old material. Right? You have to be. And of course, in Bart Ehrman's case, I mean, his big emphasis is all these other Gospels and pseudepigraphal, New Testament pseudepigraphal works, and trying to, not enough people have read these and they don't know what they said. And is it possible that these were maybe the Gnostics were the good guys?
Yeah.
And the stultifying tradition silenced them, right?
But they were more powerful than the good guys, and they silenced the good guys.
Yeah. In actuality, they were on the cutting edge of Greek philosophy and conforming the New Testament witness to the latest in Greek philosophy, which, anyway, that has a long history. Early church history
Let's not get
has a
caught
lot
up
of
in
that
that.
going on.
Yeah.
But, they become bigwigs at big universities like that precisely for pushing the limits. You don't necessarily get from them where is the center, like, of the global conversation of, believers from, I think I would want, if I want to get an answer, I want to know not where is the consensus among the liberals, nor do I want the consensus among the conservatives, right? I'd kind of want to know where is the most common ground shared by all believers from all different faith traditions and different sides of the political and theological spectrum. Like, I'd want something near the middle. That doesn't mean it's more true, right? But where Grok is going to go to the biggest universities, which are going to be more liberal leaning and perhaps less faith based. Like they're, for them, being deeply vested with Jesus as your Lord and Savior and whom you worship every Sunday might be something that would get in the way of you recovering and viewing objectively an ancient text. And so that would be a handicap, right?
At least
From a university standpoint, right?
No, I agree with that. There are a lot of places where they're trying to do research, and I'm glad they are. Okay, I don't want anybody to assume that I'm against this. Again, going with Bart, he published a lot of really good stuff, especially on text criticism and everything. He's a great scholar. And so I don't want to simply ignore him, but you got to recognize that sometimes people, they embrace a certain commitment simply because by doing this, I'm going to get a better hearing from the people that I care about the most. And I don't want to cause people to distrust everybody, but there's a part of us that still has to say, I appreciate what you're saying, back it up. You got to prove it a little bit, to say, glad you got a PhD, glad you're teaching at Princeton. These are all really great things and I'm happy for you. I still need you to prove it to me. I'm not going to just say your credentials are going to make me trust you give you blanket sort of acceptance of the things you're saying.
Yeah, and Duke is a great example of this. I mean, I was a student at Duke, and I learned really quick there that there are two ways you can, study religion and faith and theology. You can do it in the religious studies department of the university, or you can do it in the context of the divinity school. So the religious studies department is, they're teaching all the religions under the sun. And Christianity is just one religion among many, right? But if you go in the div school, no, these are all Christians. They're actually producing ordained ministers for the Methodist Church. There's a high view of Scripture. There's a primacy is put on living out your faith and having a reading of the Bible that actually preaches and teaches. It is tied to the mission of the church, right? That's where I want to go.
Yeah,
I want the people with PhDs who are teaching in the div school because they want to raise up ministers for the church. They've been doing scholarship from the beginning for the church and for its mission. But Grok doesn't know the difference between the div school and the university, or it may know the difference and say, you know what? That div school is a provincial thing that services and ordains people for one denomination, right, in that church, right? The more objective scholars would be in the religion department, where no religion is presumed to be better than all the others. And that's where they might go to get their expert. I doubt Bart Ehrman taught in the div school at Princeton.
Probably not.
I imagine he was in the religion department of the university.
I don't know that definitively, but you're probably right.
Yeah, Princeton has a seminary, Princeton Theological Seminary. I doubt he. So, again, when you're evaluating AI, it's you got to get into territory where you know something. And for us, we kind of know Bible and theology, and we have insights into the politics of universities and the schools within schools, and not all of them are equal in their ability to provide the kind of instruction that we would want in Bible and theology for students, right? Or for those who will be teaching students.
Yeah. And, we have PhDs, we're trained researchers. I think we do quality work, but there are certain things we have to admit up front. I believe in God. I think God is real. I think that he is a creator, and we can have arguments about the mechanisms of it, but I'm committed to that he is a creator. I believe that Jesus is a son of God, and I have a high view of Scripture. I don't mind saying those things out loud, but I also recognize that that's going to disqualify me in certain situations. They're going to be like, well, we can't have somebody who has those you're not objective enough. And the only thing I would push back on that a little bit is to say, everybody's got assumptions. Your assumptions don't make you more objective than I do. They just put you in a different category. And I think you want to know what people's assumptions are. Your assumption that there is no God, my assumption there is a God, and I use the word assumption very loosely like that. But to say that's who I am, you're not better than I am because you don't assume there's a God or you don't believe there's a God. But that does shape the way you view everything, and you're just as biased as I am. You're just biased in a different direction. And again, I'm not saying that that's a problem. I'm just saying we've got to acknowledge that up front. Some people are not less biased because they have certain preliminaries that they adhere to. It's just, you got to get them out there and you got to know them. And I think people, after almost 9 years, 8 or 9 years.
A lot of
8 or 9 years. Maybe it's closer to 8, but they probably have a good idea of what some of our, commitments are and how our research grows out of that. And it's just true of every person, researcher, wherever.
Well, you bring up the word, I think, that people, when it comes to technology, they don't understand bias. How can technology be biased? Well, someone who has biases is programming it to look in certain places and spit out certain information.
Oh, good
Yeah,
point.
to prioritize certain places above
Correct.
others.
Yeah.
And so they're choosing what are the, quote, reputable sources, what is the general consensus. Whoever the programmer is doing that, and that has a bias in it. And so, like, technology is biased as well because of what it comes from people who are biased. And so you can say, I mean, you have to basically frame the question very specifically in order to not get that. And even then, I don't know what it comes up with. Like, I would have loved him to say, give me, like, across the spectrum, the main viewpoints to how this happened.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about in theology or biblical studies, like, can you frame the question so that it goes to those places that it doesn't normally go to? It goes past the Bart Ehrmans of the world or the, quote, general consensus to some outliers. And I think you have to do that if you really want to get rid of some of those biases because, like I said, it's just not as nuanced as I'd like it to be. Like, it can admit, like, here is the standard view, but there's almost never a but. But here's some other options. And you know, if they included that, then I'd be fine. Like, sure, mostly people view this, but there are a few people who say this. I'm okay with that. That's what research is, right? Where we go to commentaries and, like, yeah, a lot of people are saying the same thing, but there are a few that don't, and we interact with those in different ways. And so I just like,
And every new development was among the few that don't.
correct.
Like, that's how scholarship advances.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's always the minority voice is always a minority before they become the majority voice.
Exactly.
And the majority voice is just the future minority voice.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So, you know, I just think of that as well. And this idea that, like, you know, I don't want to get too political, but
But you're gonna.
sure.
But you can't help
I
it.
can't help it. And here's why. We all lived through COVID. And what were we told during COVID? Trust the science, which meant trust the scientists, which meant trust the two people who are paid by the government to tell you what to do.
Right.
Right? And so to say no meant that you're going against
Say no to what, Sam?
lots of things. To say, or no, you're right. Let me nuance that. To say maybe there's another view.
About what?
Masks, how it's passed on, what you who it
Plexiglass
actually
shields.
affects. You know, I could go on and on, right? And
Vaccines. Yeah.
to say that is like saying, well, how dare you go against the experts? Well, because not everyone agrees. And so that's the whole point, is like, this frames it as though everyone agrees and says this, but they don't actually. And so I'll wish to say we need to be a little more critical thinkers, which is why we tell our students, you use AI to do research. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what they're talking about. You're just assuming it's right and true. And the reality is it's not all the time. There's more going on than you have any idea about, but you're just copying and pasting. And you don't know the difference. And when it comes to biblical studies, you can get lost. I think people get lost in taking AI out of it. They focus on certain scholars, certain theologians, and like, this person has it, and everything they say I buy into. That's just as dangerous because that person doesn't have it all right. None of us do. And you know, we hate to admit that we're wrong, but there's some pretty big time theologians who later like, you know what? I didn't have that right.
Yeah. That's yeah.
Yep.
It
And
happens.
so if they have the humility to do that, we need to have the humility to say, this may not be the totality of all the truth that exists in the world in this one person.
And so now, like, is when we admit to that, as rightly we should. I love that you said it, because I think you're right, Sam. People begin to go, then I can't trust anybody. Because at some point, somebody's going to backtrack. Somebody's going to say, I thought I had it right. I always thought that I didn't get it wrong. Why should I listen to the scholars? You know, should I listen to the majority? You know, that's the consensus. Right. Should I always go with the outlier? And people, their brains start to get really, really fried. They're just like, I'm not going to listen to anybody. I'm just going to do what I want, because very understandably, you create a lot of distrust.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we do with that? Like, if you can't trust the majority of scholars, then can I trust anybody? And this brings up a lot of crises of faith, of, you know, what is truth, what is fact. And I get it. Like, it's, you know, with much wisdom comes much sorrow, and the more the knowledge, the more the grief. You know, it's like, the more you know, the more you're like, I don't know what I can know. Oh,
Yeah.
it's maddening.
Yeah, right now I'm teaching a historical theology class for the grad program, and it's just like, wow. I mean, what was the majority consensus of the leading scholars in the 2nd century? Because, you know, there was a consensus there.
Mm-hmm.
and that consensus is radically different than what it was in the Middle Ages. And that consensus of, what is soteriology, what is the doctrine of salvation, is the consensus was radically different the day that Martin Luther posted the 95 Theses on the door than it was 100 years later. So to study history is to note that what was consensus for one generation is just not for the next generation. And there are always voices today that are leaning toward what will be tomorrow's consensus who are in the minority. And consensus is always tied to consensus among whom?
Right.
And Grok has its criteria of who are the most reliable and trusted people. And it's going to be worldly criteria. Right. And you'd think, well, Christians, so you'd be tempted to be like, well, if I really want good Bible answers, then I'm going to just say, of people who have a high view of the Bible, answer this question. Now, that might be an interesting delimiter, right? And, to weed out some of the people whose approaches to the Bible would be less than helpful. But who does Grok think the people who claim to have a high view of the Bible are?
List first.
Is it this, Southern Baptist Convention, right? Which would be, they do have a high view of the Bible, but a very different high view of the Bible than we have. And
different conclusions.
Neither one has a higher view of the Bible than the other, but the Southern Baptist Convention also has a set of theological convictions that they can claim have long historical consensus, right, in certain circles, right? And then you just learn, the deeper you get into education, you learn just how many different fields there are within any one field and how many different consensi there are. And so you have to figure out, you have to know enough to know there are multiple fields, and then to use Grok well, or ChatGPT, how to sort through the sources that you want to eliminate, so you can isolate the kind of question from the kind of perspective that you're really looking for. So this is one of the questions that, is that higher ed is talking about. Will we get to a day in education where a single person connects to a university system that uses AI to create a customized educational experience for Sam Long? And through AI just kind of creates a program around you and what you want to do for a living. Can we get there, right? Or to use artificial intelligence well, are we going to need to train people in the classics, right? Robust general education core where you're learning the lessons of history and about bias and perspective and philosophy and theology and science. People to be able to use it well are going to need to be well-rounded, well-trained, critical thinking people.
Right.
And it's not clear that AI can help you become that.
Nope. That critical thinking piece is key, because if you don't have it, or you don't have the expertise to interact with it, then you have to assume that what you're reading is correct.
Yeah. You never know what you don't know.
Right.
And once you know it, how is it going to change everything for you? That's the question. For me, that's always that's the fun part.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what I don't know. And once I know it, how are things going to change? To me, that's the adventure. I love that part.
Yeah. Well, this is our initial foray into issues and questions of truth that were prompted by this little video on the fossil record. And I don't know what I think about the fossil record, but I do know that it made me a little more suspicious of what I'm getting when I ask AI a question.
Yep.
And that
Same.
if I don't probe more deeply, and if I don't know enough to be able to probe more deeply, I'm going to get someone's consensus. Yeah. And it may not be a source that I trust. Yeah. And that makes it all very tricky. All right.
We all looked at each other. Who's going to take us out? Thank you so much for joining us in this episode of the After Class Podcast. After Class, because
the best conversations happen
after class.